Um, we have been always wondering about energy. When we talk about energy medicine, and we always talk about, oh, I have good amount of energy. I have lack of energy. I feel tired. I have all this. So energy is everything. Energy is from the sun. It comes to energy, and then we go to the plants, and the plants we eat, we get the food. And energy cycle continues. Animals eat and people eat food, vegetables and animals, and then the energy cycle continues. Energy cycle continues inside the body and also outside the world. So it's all the way out everywhere. But today, the energy medicine part we're going to focus on, and that is what is the real way energy is created. It's very simple. I'm not going to go anything different, but I'm going to tell you energy is created by food. Obvious. If you don't have food, energy will never be there. Everybody needs food. So food creates the energy. And out of the food, there are elements here. And we're going to focus on a couple of elements very quickly, because this is mainly an overview initially, not the details. But it goes with the one simple aspect of food component called glucose. It's very interesting. Glucose is what creates energy, not the fats, not the protein, no, glucose. Glucose is the main important aspect of it. And, it's very simple because the formula is C6H12O6. It's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And that gets to cycle, and that creates energy. Very simple. You don't have to worry too much about that. But the glucose is where the energy is. People always say, oh, the person didn't get enough, so he was given intravenous glucose, We said that. Why not? That's absolutely, that's what happens. IV glucose was given, right? If we don't take anything by mouth, they put the glucose in your intravenous. So therefore, that's the one element that we need to talk about. So then, how does it work? Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of anatomy, or the histology, or the actual cell, for example. Okay, what is the cell and where the energy is? So let's imagine a cell means your house. Okay, let's say your house is a whole cell. And please turn off. Your house is a whole cell, and in the cell itself, there is a nucleus. A nucleus is a control tower. Control tower is a control where all the kinds of controls are being done. In our case, for example, I just want to give you one example. If you have the electrical board that you have, all the switches and all the circuit board that we have, it's like a control tower for the entire energy system in the house. However, then the rest of the area around the house is all air and all the stuff in it. And that's we call cytoplasm or fluid-like thing. In every cell, there's some fluid in it. And that's all fluid there. And now one more thing gets added, and that is the factory, energy factory. I'm going to go directly to the energy factory. What is the energy factory? Where the energy is created. And that is mitochondria, the word mitochondria. Both are Greek words, mitos and chondrios. Mitos means thread. There are threads in it. If you look at the mitochondria, I put a picture on our WhatsApp, and you may look at it, or we can put it again. But the thing is, there's thread there, and then the granules there. Chondrias means granules. So the common thread and granules. And when you have that, that is just the composition of mitochondria. Now, what the mitochondria also, it's interesting part of the mitochondria is that it is, first of all, the question comes up is, how does it function? It functions in two ways. One, it requires oxygen. We all know this, but the oxygen comes in to the cell. A number of processes, I just want to describe this. In the same way in the house, for example, say, for example, I have a heater system and a cooling system. Everybody has that, in the basement or wherever it is located in your house. That is mitochondria for us. That's energy generation. And whatever that comes, gas comes or electricity comes into that area, oil, heat, whatever that is, or solar system is there, whatever the system is there, that is your fuel. And that's your glucose. That's the glucose part. So just to give the analogy there, is you understand what that mitochondria is. The mitochondria is what generates, it heats your water, it gives you heat outside, etc., etc. Now, go further a little bit and say, what do they do? Now, first of all, the glucose comes in. We eat the food, and the glucose comes in. And glucose, let's say glucose enters. Now, there are so many mechanisms, so many things that happen here with insulin and all that stuff. Don't worry about it. It's just a simple part. Follow the glucose. It comes into the cell. Now, the energy system starts working. The fuel is there. I have the oil. I have the whatever is there. Now the system starts working. And there are a number of ways of that doing. If you have enough oxygen, the mitochondria starts working and creates a unit of energy. Like, for example, in electricity, you have a watt or a watt, or for example, like that. Sound energy will have a decibel. Just an example, okay? So it's like a unit of energy. So energy so what in light it is luminescence. So these are units of energy, and don't worry about the details. But the unit of energy in our system is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Don't worry about the actual thing, but ATP. Just remember ATP. ATP is the unit of energy. If you have enough ATP, you will have good energy. If you don't have enough ATP, you're running out of any ATP production. You're running out of energy. So it's important thing that the glucose gets converted to ATP. And that's done through a cycle. It's a specific cycle it goes through. We don't have to know the name. It's called Krebs cycle, but it's a cycle. It just is a chemical process that goes through, and it produces ATPs. Now, ATPs are produced with good amount of oxygen. So oxygen is required because that's like a fuel. If you're gonna, for example, if you're gonna light up a fire, you need air. In a vacuum, the fire will not come. So that's why oxygen is required. Now, we have an amazing system. The system is amazing because if the oxygen is there, it produces about 32 to 36 units of ATP. Just a unit, okay? 32 to 30, if you have enough oxygen. Now that much of energy you get, for the oxygen given when the ATP is produced. But one cycle goes, it produces one cycle only. It produces that much of ATP. Now, if you have less oxygen, you don't have enough oxygen, what happens? The body is not stupid. Mitochondria say, well, if it's less, I will still work with it. I'll produce something. You gave me some oxygen. If you don't give enough oxygen, of course, the mitochondria will die. No question about that. They will get sick, they will die, and they will not have energy. So less oxygen and less energy also. It's the same story. And of course, no glucose, there's no question. Anyway, you all know that, However, extending further to say how many units of ATP can be produced, it resorts to another cycle. You see, when the cycle works, metabolism, it produces acid, okay? It produces acid and it produces carbon dioxide and water. You know all that, carbon dioxide and water. We get it out of the system and then breathing out. And all carbonic acid, but there are other acids also, lactic acid and pyruvic. There are a number of acids that get produced because of the breakdown of the glucose and other material. Now, it starts using the acid part. It says, well, I have something to use, so let me use it in a different way. It starts using another option. My electricity was out, so I had to make a little bit of a fire. I had a wood, make a fire. The fire can produce smoke. Fire can produce smoke. I don't have enough air, will produce some smoke. That's what happens when we get into this kind of situation. And now it produces only 2 units of ATP. Just imagine 36 and 2. So if you don't breathe well, if you're not going to take care of your breath work, if you're not going to take care of the oxygen properly, you're not going to create good amount of energy. Obvious. And so understand the importance of this. Where do you want your energy level? And how efficiently? Now, unfortunately, what does happen, like you said, I said fire, it produces smoke. This smoke is nothing else but there are some breakdown products. They are called radicals. Radical, like, in a society, a radical person is a person we are afraid of, they're like criminals. Or radical, anyways. It doesn't have to be criminal, but they're radical. They have some very, bad effects. Same thing happens in the body. And they're called oxidation products. We call them oxidation products. The oxidizing means oxygen utilization happens. So these are the products that then start hurting mitochondria, the cell wall, the nucleus, and everything start hurting. And that's very important to recognize. So if you create what we call as oxygen debt, we have a problem. We have to pay the debt. If you don't pay the debt, your house will be taken. If you don't pay electricity bill, what's going to happen? It's going to be shut off. The same old story. And so we go the same energy cycle, and energy will be not there. Less energy, you will have, whatever it is, your wattage will go down, your heat will go down. You cannot be able to do anything with that amount of energy. So remember that the oxygen, therefore, important oxygen is required. The body will use it. The body will produce ATP. Now, body also produces something called ADP. The TP is three phosphates. ADP is 2 phosphates. But why? Because sometimes, you say, okay, I can't produce this much, but I can produce something else. But what happens is every so often, if you don't require too much of energy, for example, I don't require too much of energy somewhere. I take a small lamp and go around, at night, I need only a night lamp. I don't need anything more. So that's my night lamp, for example. ADP is like a night lamp. So all I need is a little bit of that. And that's the need. So body decides, okay, I have that much, ADP is fine. The body decides that. And what it does is, interestingly, when ATP gets down to ADP, energy is created because it is actually less, amount. So it's conserving. But and the body can also convert ADP back to ATP. And that's the funny part. So that cycle has to be regenerated. And so that cycle continues. Now, I'll tell you a couple of few statistics here now before we conclude this initial part of it. But the statistics is important, and that statistics is crucial, and we will deal with it in the next section. So let's go to the next section. This is the understanding of our energy and cycle.